Sub-Saharan Africa is urbanizing rapidly, adding more than 35 million people to its cities each year. And already such unprecedented urbanization presents a sobering picture. According to recent UN estimates, today there are almost 400 million people in Africa who live in cities. And of these, over 60% or 240 million people live in slums, where water supply and sanitation services are severely inadequate. And by 2025, the urban population in Africa is expected to be 50% of the current 1 billion population. And so as and when this happens, cities in Africa will be placed under immense stress towards adequately handling and providing for such growth.
The ICT in Africa has been growing tremendously, and not surprising because it's very correlated with the urbanization rate in Africa. You may know that Africa is the fastest urbanizing continent in the world. South Asia has scale in its urbanization. Africa has speed. And along with this speed comes the access to ICT, access to telephones. Over 60% of the adults, if not more, in urban Africa have a mobile phone. About 360 million people have access to some kind of mobile or land phones. And the growth in terms of internet access per year has been growing at 9%. So clearly, with the emerging economic growth, with the urbanization, what we're beginning to see is an ICT revolution in the making.
The Africa Urban and Water Unit of the World Bank is releasing its initial report on ICT for good urban governance in Africa. The basic message we wanted to convey through this report is to suggest ICT strategies that could be replicated in Africa across a spectrum of avenues ranging from local governance to urban planning to water and sanitation. The focus of this report is not to concentrate on overtly complex or cost-inefficient methodologies, but rather on practical yet innovative state-of-the-art solutions for cities and citizens that need them the most.
This report is really an exercise where we are trying to do things differently. We are trying to look at the use of information and communications technologies and how they can be used not just for connectivity, but to really change the way that cities are functioning. Whether it's about how those city functions are being carried out, or whether it's about how those cities or municipalities are delivering services to the public. And what is interesting in that exercise, that the authors have tried to look at experiences from around the world and trying to show us the way as to how things could be done differently in Africa.
Local governance is a very difficult storyline, as we are all discovering. How do you get governments, the state, public providers to actually be responsive to citizens? ICT can help in many, many ways. In the city of Johannesburg, for example, almost every corner of inner city, there is an ICT-enabled system for reporting back on crimes. In other places, we have seen ICT helping people to pay bills immediately. And if bills are paid, they expect services. So there's an ability to complain if services are not functioning. In Senegal, I went and visited what they call the command center of the water utility. It's a state-of-the-art system which uses GPS, mobile systems to report breakdowns in water delivery. It measures the time taken by a provider to respond to the breakdown and how quickly they've been able to solve it. All of that creates the information base for better local governance and greater accountability of the state to citizens.
What is also interesting in that report is that it really gives the reader a number of ideas as to where partnerships could be forged. And for example, you look at how some of the Latin American countries have been using ICTs in urban context. And what you realize is that it is actually very relevant to how it could be used in Lagos or in Johannesburg. But you also see opportunities to partner with some of our more traditional partners who have also a long history of using information and communications technologies in urban context, such as Korea and Singapore. And so going forward, we see that out of this exercise, out of this report, will be a number of pointers that are going to help our teams create and nurture those partnerships.
This report is a work in progress, and we would love to hear from practitioners their comments, suggestions, and ideas to guide the World Bank further in this direction. And their comments will be incorporated and taken into account while drafting an advanced version of this report, which will be released soon.